Welcome to That's Good Sports. I am Brandon. The XFL is going to come back from the dead more times than Michael Myers-Perna. Not Mike Myers. Sadly, his career died for good after the Love Guru. Now, the XFL announced this week that it will not partner with the CFL, and it will not return until 2023 instead of spring of 2022, but is still exploring international partner options between the XFL, the USFL, and the tease of an XFL-CFL merger. Spring football is getting muddy with too many possibilities, so I will explain what I think is going to happen with the XFL in today's video. Yeah, it could be in trouble. Plus, Drew Lock is lucky to be alive after a scary incident on a Kansas highway, and Derek Carr may be the biggest threat to the sanctity of marriage we've ever seen. That's good sports. Subscribe if you want. Big thanks to everyone who showed up for the Patreon Zoom meeting last night. I may have had a little too much whiskey and woke up with a headache, but I will have more Patreon shoutouts at the end of today's episode, so stick around. Right now, we are sponsored by Raycon.com/thatsgood, which will save you 15% when you use my link below. I have taken my wireless Raycons with me everywhere. Yes, I do leave my editing station from time to time. I've been from New York City to the desert, to the top of the mountains, all the way down to the industrial wastelands of North Denver, to the most American place I know, a bald eagle's nest. I even went to the future, where Raycon's 6 hours of playtime, array of color selection, and snug noise isolating fit were unmatched. Raycon does have a 45-day free return policy. That means you have until football preseason to test them out. So click my link in the description or go to buyraycon.com/thatsgood to get 15% off Raycon earbuds, which are already half the price of other premium earbuds. Okay, hide your wives, hide your mothers, because the unsuspecting Derek Carr may be taking them out to dinner, treating them to a day at the day spa, and then taking them to bed, where their eyelashes will flutter gently next to each other. Because that's how Derek Carr has sex. Eyelash butterfly kisses. Derek Carr says he was told that he is not the motherfucker that Tom Brady was referring to on HBO's The Shop. Now, if you will remember, Brady said a team decided to stick with some motherfucker instead of him, and we've all been trying to figure out which NFL QB is having sex with everyone's mother. It's like playing Guess Who with Samuel L. Jackson.
Does he look like a bitch?
This was the quote from Derek Carr. What I heard, it wasn't me. And so I'm good with that, Carr said on the Brother from Another podcast. He also declined to say who he heard it from. My theory is that Tom Brady made up this whole thing in his head, and the motherfucker in question does not truly exist in the way we've been made to believe. The motherfucker is Tyler Durden. This is like Michael Jordan imagining slights and blowing things out of proportion in order to keep himself motivated. Soon, Tom Brady's detractors will be so few in number that he will be forced to actually follow me and Barry McCockiner on Twitter, the only two people left on Earth who still criticize him way too much. Now, the real victim here may be John Gruden. Carr may not have fornicated Brady's mother, but he snuck John Gruden's wife's name into one of his audibles. Even more disturbing might be the fact that he followed it with Tiger Woods' name, and John Gruden has no idea why. I mean, if you hear your wife's name and Tiger Wood, you think adultery. Now, as I mentioned, Drew Lock was driving through Kansas, and a lug nut flew across a median and smashed the windshield of his car. If this isn't a sign that God wants Aaron Rodgers to be a Broncos quarterback, I don't know what is. As you can see, the lug nut embedded itself in Drew's windshield, officially giving Drew's windshield fewer drops than Jerry Jeudy. Now, the best story of the week is this one. NFL player or not, I think we can all relate to the feeling of getting cut off financially by your parents. Or maybe your parents still pay your rent. I'm not here to judge. Our economy is screwed up. But Titans rookie Rashad Weaver got the word from his mom that he now has to pay his own phone bill. And her rationale is solid. It's that he, of course, is an NFL player now. Last week he tweeted, "My mom decided today, on her birthday, she wanted to break 23 years of trust and bond we had built by telling me I'm in the NFL and I need to pay for my own phone bill. I feel betrayed." If my daughter ever makes it to the NFL, and yes, there's a chance, you sexists, I've got a bill ready for her that she's going to have to pay the second the commissioner announces her name. That bill? My psychotherapy bill that I'm going to need to get through her teenage years. And yes, when I get old, she'll be changing my diaper. But that's always been the case. Now, the big story. This sucks. My favorite alternative football league, the XFL, will not be returning until the spring of 2023. Probably. Sure, the new XFL trailer is hyping me up, but I can't help but feel pessimistic about the XFL return as it is delayed another year. To me, that's not a good sign.
This is for the players, the coaches, the cities, the fans.
For stories untold.
For potential unrealized.
We are hungry, we are humble.
And no one will outwork us.
The XFL is back.
Back for the love
of football.
When Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson purchased the league for pennies on the dollar last year, we were told the XFL would be back this following spring in 2022. Even more troubling is the fact that the XFL merger talks with the CFL have stopped or have been put on pause. The same way I put the Baywatch reboot on pause every time I see Zac Efron and The Rock shirtless together. Oh, you try a no-fap challenge through one of those scenes. Now, I think those merger talks stopped after the Tampa Bay Lightning stomped the Montreal Canadiens to win the Stanley Cup Finals in a decisive 4-1 series, as Canada realized how hard it would be to beat American sports teams in any league. USA, USA, USA. Suck it, Trudeau. Now, the CFL will go on and begin its 14-game Canadian season starting August 5th. I think this may be a sign that the future of the XFL is more uncertain than we all thought. If you recall, the league was actually doing well and had a good product on the field before COVID forced it into bankruptcy under the direction of Vince McMahon. Then, of course, The Rock swooped in and bought the league. And we were all like, yes, The Rock. But now, the league might be in financial trouble again, or maybe The Rock just wants to make sure this league is set up to succeed, and the best way to do that is to not rush it back. Maybe there's a less shitty football movie than the one with Kurt Warner coming out, and it stars The Rock, and he wants to relaunch the league the same week his new football movie debuts. Per Sportico, they released this official statement from the XFL. While our discussions with the CFL did not ultimately lead to a collaboration, the effort reinforced our belief and commitment to developing the XFL for international spring football. The XFL said in a statement, "We look forward to seeing everyone for kickoff in spring of 2023. Now, the XFL stating that it wants to develop international spring ball is what's interesting here. My question, if it doesn't work out with Canada, then what is the goal of international spring football for the XFL? I get that there's a global audience there, but outside of Canada, you have some serious travel requirements if you were to partner with, say, the European League of Football. Even the NFL is like, just a couple games a season across the pond is all we can handle. So here's what I think the XFL might do, okay? First, I believe the XFL will merge with the USFL, which is set to return in 2022.
USFL is back. See you in 2022. It's football. It is real football. It's pro football at the highest level. It's just being played in the spring. When I go back to our days of the USFL, that's what it was. We had Reggie White, we had Jim Kelly, we had Steve Young, we had Herschel Walker, we had name after name. We had 15 guys that played in the USFL that played in the NFL Pro Bowl the following year.
I mentioned the return of the USFL back in June, and yes, I too have already forgotten about it because there's this weird saturation of leagues trying to take over during the spring. Started with the AAF, it failed. Then it was the XFL. Now the USFL. We had the FCF on Twitch. That was fan-controlled football. There's the ELF, which I just mentioned. The European League of Football. And there's, in the background, the Freedom Football League, which was announced back in 2018, but has yet to come to fruition. The Freedom Football League is co-founded by Ricky Williams. And at this point, I think it's just a shell company for Ricky to move weed through. The USFL return is big, and that could be the other reason the XFL is waiting. I'm not sure why they'd let the USFL drop a foundation in the spring, this 2022 spring, unless they intended to merge with their would-be competing league. The USFL, which had its heyday back in the 80s, is returning, and it is also partnered with Fox Sports, which is a pretty big deal. If you recall, finding an AAF game was harder than finding a good episode of That's Good Sports. And even though the XFL was easier to watch, you still had to do some channel searching to find all of the games. I believe the XFL and the USFL have to consider a merger because it's fucking dumb to have two competing spring leagues. We're not even sure there's room for one here in America. Together though, on one network like Fox Sports, they will be easy to consume and I think succeed. After they merge, I think they seek an international partner, either the CFL or the European League of Football. In 2023, we'll all be watching the World Bowl between the Cologne Centurions and the aptly renamed DC Beer Snakes. I think the EFL makes the most sense for a merger. 2021, right now, is the inaugural season for the ELF, and their games just started this week, which is probably why you have never heard of it. The ELF is owned by SEH, which stands for Sports Entertainment Holding, and on the XFL Newsroom website, they have this little nugget written. Following its inaugural 2021 season, SEH plans to expand the ELF by inviting teams from other nations, eventually leading to 20 teams competing from 10 countries. Personally, I think it would be really cool to have separate seasons for, say, the XFL/USFL and the European Football League. Let both play out their full schedule, crown a champion, but then do a 3-week playoff between the top 4 teams from each on an international showdown every May or June. In order for the XFL to return, it will either wait for the USFL to fail this spring or merge with it for the following spring of 2023, if the USFL is successful. If the European League of Football does well financially, we could be watching the longest abbreviation of leagues in sports history with the XFL, USFL, ELF, CFL. Whoo!
The XFL is back.
Back for the love
Of football.
Just 2 short years after we said it would be. All right, Patreon shoutouts. I said I would have them. We got big dick shoutouts for Reeve, Herbst, and Owen Hallman. Thank you guys so much for your donations. Again, thanks for showing up to the Patreon Zoom, which we do every month for all $10 patrons. August, we'll be doing the fantasy leagues for all $20 patrons. So thank you. And don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel. You can watch another video, it's on the screen right now.